Welcome to the Silicon Slopes podcast. I'm Ryan Boswell, joined here today by Spencer Cook from Continuum. Spencer, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks.
Yeah?
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thanks for joining us. We're here at Vivint Arena. It's September 30th, day 2 of Silicon Slopes Summit. Were you able to attend yesterday?
Yeah, I was here.
Yeah? What were your thoughts? How was day 1?
It was great. It was actually my first time at Silicon Slopes.
Really?
So I thought it was fantastic. Got to hear from a lot of good key leaders in the area.
Yep. And day 2 here. Exciting environment. Can't believe we're wrapping up. I feel like it's like a year's worth of work going into this exact moment right here. So it's exciting.
Cool, man. It's killer.
So Spencer, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about Continuum. What are you up to?
Yeah, so Continuum was founded in January of 2020, and we are a creative agency just located here in Orem, Utah. And I graduated from UVU with a bachelor's degree in business management and entrepreneurship. It was one of the first years they offered the entrepreneurship degree, which seemed too good to be true. I was already, through my generals and such in high school, and then served an LES mission, and then went back to school and didn't really know what I wanted to do. Entrepreneurship seemed like the perfect degree for that. And I learned a ton. We had professional sales classes and stuff there, which kind of piqued my interest to sell for Vivint for a little while, and then on to medical software sales for a bit, and then to Lucid before starting Continuum.
So it sounds like you've been all over Silicon Slopes.
I've been everywhere, man.
Yeah, you've been everywhere.
Great.
So let's take kind of a chronological approach and talk about, why don't we start with your time at UVU? President Asher Taminas was just added to our board. We have a great relationship with UVU, and we're always appreciative for what they do for us. So what can you tell us about your time at UVU? You were there in 2014, correct? Is when you graduated?
Yeah, correct.
So graduated in 2014. Tell us about that entrepreneurship program and what that taught you that has now applied into what you're doing now.
I'm a firm believer that school is where you learn how to learn. And I think I learned how to learn at UVU. There's so many things. You can't learn from one professor how to do a specific task that's going to come up later in life. But you learn how to get over certain problems, which will then help you solve later on. And so I think that UVU did a fantastic job of making the entrepreneurship and sales program just really fun and immersive, and had a lot of professors there that were just really successful. It's really cool to see these men who have gone on to create successful businesses and then come back and give back to the community to make it so there's other people can have that same opportunity. The entrepreneurship classes were really fun and unique. It just kind of felt like a workshop every day where you get in and get your hands dirty and actually, start a business. And I was there with the founder of Pura, and we had a class together, and he kind of presented one day this idea. And then obviously his idea was way better than my class idea. So it's pretty awesome to see so many groups come out of Utah. But I think you've done a fantastic job.
Well, I think the really cool thing is that everything starts as an idea, right? And it may be different from your idea. Obviously, Pura has grown a great presence in Utah County and nationwide, worldwide, right? They make the world smell better. But I think it's interesting that you guys were in the same class. You had the same experiences, probably the same professors. And we all take a different approach to success. And there's no one set way to do things. There's no one set way or path to success. So one question I do have is for students that may be in an entrepreneurship program or in a business management program, those that are wanting to be able to make their break into the world of entrepreneurship. What advice do you have now being 8 years out of that program? What advice do you have for students or people that may be looking to enter the workforce or start their own businesses?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who feel like they need to get out of college and immediately become an entrepreneur. And that's a good way to go for some. But others feel like a failure if they try something and it doesn't work. You have to pay your bills. You have to gain experience, right? You notice that a lot of these guys who are speaking on stage here at the summit, they all have amazing experiences. They don't typically walk out of college and walk into some crazy successful business, right? They grinded. And a lot of that grind comes from learning from other businesses. And I think that's why I really enjoyed my time with hopping around, like you mentioned, Silicon Slopes, hopping everywhere and kind of learning from great leaders. And I was able to take a little bit from each one and kind of piece it together.
Yeah, I think you make a great point that, we feel this pressure. I feel like everyone that has the entrepreneurship mindset feels this immediate pressure that they have to go do something. Yep. We're in a creator economy. We're in an economy where people are just coming up with ideas constantly. And I feel like there's this really immense pressure that's put on people that have this internal drive to make things and create things. So I think that's great advice that, be willing to go out and to gain experiences, bounce around in a couple companies, learn from different leaders, but also make sure that you grow your network. And I think that's something really important. That was, in my time at UVU, that was the most important thing that I took away was the things that I learned and the people that I met. Yeah, so UVU does a really good job of fostering that. They're the largest university in Utah. So we're grateful for what they do, and appreciate you sharing your experiences from UVU.
Cool. Of course.
So let's talk about, you went to Vivint, started breaking into the Silicon Slopes ecosystem. We're here in Vivint Arena, which is good. You said you did 5 seasons with Vivint, correct?
Yeah, 5 seasons.
And then where did you go after Vivint?
I went to a company called Solution Reach in Lehigh.
Okay.
And I felt lucky, I guess, to be able to get the position I had there. They have cold callers, which it's a grind, which I felt like I'd been cold calling, but door to door for a long time. And I didn't necessarily want to start back at the grind of that. And they had a lot of trust in me and saw my experience at Vivint as really valuable. And so they put me into kind of a closer position, more or less. You do your own seeking, but then you also close more. And that was a really good opportunity for me to just hop right in and get my feet wet in this software world, which I didn't know anything about before that. So I went to Solution Reach. I was there for about 4 years, and then I went to, I guess about 3 years, and I went to Lucid. And Lucid was fantastic, had really strong leadership there, and I learned a ton. Something I really liked about that, which you mentioned just a moment ago about networking, is day one with Lucid, you update your LinkedIn. You take a new headshot, you get your experience up to date, you learn how to post, you learn how to, take care of your LinkedIn, which seems kind of counterintuitive at first glance because it's easier to recruit those people. But Lucid's all about just building people up and kind of having an incubator of success. And so there's a lot of people that have taken that and been able to go on. And I know several people from Lucid who've been able to leave and do their own thing. I think a lot of that is, from Carl's son and I guess Dave Groh now, who's CEO, but just their mentality and the way that they run things there. And that's something that has stuck with me immensely.
So after you left Lucid and then you started Continuum right after that, is that correct?
Yeah, it's a little more complicated than that, but in general, yes. I was at Lucid and I felt like I had reached it as far as the best sales job I could find anyway. It wasn't my lifetime bit, but I felt like sales wasn't going to get any better than that. And when I was there, I kind of felt this weird internal battle. I was there every day around really, really smart people, right? I was never the smartest man in the room. I rarely am, right? That's a rare thing. You should always surround yourself by people who are way smarter than you and have way more experience than you. And that's how you grow. And so I felt like I had that at Lucid. And that was a check mark in my box. Money was good, right? Like you go and crush quota and you do really well and they have fair comp plans there. And so I was happy with that, but I still felt this void. And so I knew I needed to get out and do something, and I didn't know what that was. And so I quit Lucid. Nothing against them, it's just timing. And so I quit Lucid, and Solution Reach was pretty awesome and let me go back part-time and do the same job I did before. They let me work part-time hours, but gave me a full-time quota and said, as long as you can keep up, we'll keep you around. So I'd work there early, get off early, and then go and try to start something. And I was in that phase of trying to figure it out for about a year before I just finally bit the bullet and went both feet in.
Gotcha. So one thing when I have conversations with people that strive to be entrepreneurs and they're stuck in how they explain it is they're stuck in this 9 to 5, but they want to be doing their own thing. Yeah. Obviously we have a couple of factors that play into being able to transition into, moving into working for yourself, building your own dream, building your own company. Did you feel like you faced any issues with burning any bridges by leaving Lucid to become an entrepreneur? Did you feel any odd relationships there?
No, not at all. And I think that there's nothing wrong with gaining experience somewhere. And any good leader wants others to be successful. So if they're angry at you for leaving, you can leave in the wrong way, right? And there's definitely times where I haven't done things perfectly and leaving places and whatnot. I think Solution Reach was so easy to work with that maybe I didn't give them my whole heart as I was exiting to my own thing, right? That's one thing where I didn't ruin any relationships, but I probably could have done better there. But Lucid, they did a really good job at making it very clear that they want people to succeed. And so I still have relationships with people from Lucid, and they've been instrumental in getting me to start Continuum as well.
I think I've heard incredible things about the leadership over at Lucid, and they're doing great stuff. And it sounds like you're not the first person that ended up leaving and doing their own thing, right? And so to me, it sounds like Lucid does a great job of building up the next level of leaders, training people, and almost acting as a trampoline for them to bounce into the next thing that they're going to be doing.
Exactly.
So I think that's a key aspect and pillar of any great organization, especially here in Silicon Slopes. It's something that we celebrate and appreciate in all of the organizations that, we have companies that are going to have to be built up. We have companies that are going to have to pop up and new leaders need to be there. And we just love that the organizations and the companies that are here and established are doing a great job of not necessarily being selfish and understanding that there are great people in their organizations that are going to go on to do great things. Yeah, it's a great example of leadership that you took away from Lucid. I appreciate you sharing that. So now let's talk about the fun stuff. Let's talk about Continuum. So how'd you get the idea to start Continuum? I know you left your previous job. You felt this void. Let's talk about that a little bit and what that transition looked like.
When I started Continuum, it was just me and my buddy Mike and a friend named Mark. The three of us put our heads together and like, let's do something. We don't know. We all feel like we need to be entrepreneurs, right? We didn't really know what that meant. And this was maybe in 2018, we started talking, and then 2019 started getting a little more serious about it. But we rented an office. It was one of the first things we did in January 2020. And we're like, let's do something. Let's figure it out. And so we had this huge whiteboard wall. It was like 20 feet long, 12 feet tall. And we would fill that thing up just regularly with ideas. We'd literally just, anytime we had an idea, we weren't in the office, we'd text each other and then update the wall when we got in the office. And we had this entire thing filled, and we'd wipe it down, keep the good ideas, ditch the crappy ones. We'd start businesses. I even started like a lawn care business, a landscaping business, started a website, got an LLC, found some work, and realized this isn't scalable the way I wanted. So we just kind of left that. And we started doing video, so like explainer videos and such. We just using kind of low-hanging fruit with skill set that my partner Mike had. He's like, well, I can create video and I can direct that stuff. So I created, different packages and started emailing and LinkedIn and saying, hey, you need content? Here's a video. Here's some examples of what we do. Here's our package. You can buy coins and you can redeem those coins for retainer type work. And it didn't work at all, right? So horrible idea or bad execution, not sure. But it was really early on that we were just okay with failing fast. If you're going to fail fast and move on. No feelings are ever hurt. Like we did 360 capture, which is basically scanning a human or an object and then turning it into a 3D model. Later on, you can animate that, put it in a video game, use it in augmented reality. Nobody cared, So we just tried all these things for about a year. And then finally we landed on, we were doing a project for Nu Skin actually. And my partner had done a project just like it, a carbon copy where he would take a physical product, one of the Nu Skin things you rub on your face to make you look and feel younger, right? Look beautiful. You have this physical device and they wanted to see an augmented reality because they had a shipping issue with manufacturing in China and they couldn't get the product in time. And so he created an app, submitted it to the Apple Store, they accepted it, and it was all good. A couple years later, they came back to him, and this is now when I'm involved. And they wanted the same exact thing with a new device. And Apple denied it. We finished the project, and Apple said, no, sorry, we changed some policies, can't do it. And for us, it was like a $30,000 job. It was a pretty big thing for us at the time, right? And we were going to have to tell Nu Skin that we couldn't get it done. We spent weeks just on the phone with Apple. It didn't work. And then we didn't want to throw in the towel, so we found a way to do augmented reality on the web without an app download, which means there's no gatekeeper. There's no Apple involved. You just do what you want and you release it.
It's decentralized.
Exactly. And so you make it where somebody can actually do a tap to place experience, but from the web with no app download, which also decreases barrier to entry. We're like, let's try it. I don't know. And we did it, and that's been 3 years since we launched that, and they've never promoted it other than putting one link in an email. We still get hits every single day around the world. And we've had hundreds of thousands of people, Nu Skin sales reps, pitching this product by saying, hey, Mr. Client, here's a textable link and just click on this and you can see the product in your space. And so from that day, we said, let's do web-based augmented reality, and that's our business. And so we found that that's a really good way to get our foot in the door with a lot of companies. What we actually offer now is much more complex than web AR. It's virtual reality trainings, and it's augmented reality long form educational pieces, and it's Web3 NFT projects, blockchain development. But if we reach out to somebody and fire hose them with all of the capabilities, they're going to say no every single time. And so now we just say, we do web AR. This is what it is. You have a product. Here's a solution. And then we get our foot in the door, and then we're able to offer the other things over time. And it's worked well for us. But that was really it, just fighting through all the failures and being okay with it. And, luckily I had a HELOC at the time that got me through about 9 months of no pay when we started. And then we were able to start paying ourselves a little bit as we went. And so here we are.
So I love the concept. There's a couple of things I just want to recap that you said in there. The first is fail fast, right? Yep. And I think a lot of people struggle to understand that one failure does not define you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? It's like if we're very hard on ourselves when it comes to personal development and growth. And, if we were best friends and I saw that you fell down, obviously I wouldn't point at you and say, man, you're terrible. I can't believe you fell down, right? I'd say, hey, Spencer, pop back up. Let's get at it, right? Let's go do what we need to do. Yeah. We're really hard on ourselves a lot of times. And I feel like entrepreneurs feel this internal battle to just do stuff, right? And sometimes we feel a little bit of imposter syndrome. There's this weight that we carry with us that makes it hard for us to continue and fail fast.
Yep.
So I don't know if you've ever heard the story of Colonel Sanders and how he got his recipes approved. But Colonel Sanders from KFC, I don't remember the exact number, but he pitched his recipe over 1,000 times before anyone actually purchased the recipe. I believe it was the 1006th pitch that he made that someone was finally, all right, let's do this. And here we are, right? And he wasn't 20, he wasn't 25, he wasn't 40. I think he was well into his 60s when he had finally come up with this idea, right? And so it's never too late to start. We can fail fast. We can fail 1,000 times. We just have to get over that internal block where we don't want to fail, right? None of us want to fail. We want to see what succeeds. Yeah. And I think the interesting thing as well, what you talked about with web AR, right? It's like that's something that just makes sense. Like, how did we not have that before? Right? It's like tap to pay on our phones. I remember getting my first iPod Touch and thinking, wow, that's cool. I can play Tap Zoo here on my phone. Here we are like 5-10 years later. And now all of a sudden I have my entire wallet. I have all my credit cards. Yep. It's just like, how did we live without this in technology before? And I think a lot of people don't recognize there's a lot of work that goes into that. There's a first development, then you have the second one that fell through. But there's a ton of work that goes into the things that we use in our everyday life. And my favorite thing is when I find out about who the person is that created something like that. And I'm just like, I say a little internal thought. I'm like, man, thank you for creating NFC Pay. I appreciate it. Thank you for creating web AR, right? Yeah. So kudos to you guys for starting with that, right? And you probably, when you graduated college from UVU, you probably didn't have this thought, man, in 4 or 5 years, I'm going to start web AR, right? And everything just transitioned into, it took a perfect path. The experiences lined up, where you needed to go, what was next, and you didn't get in your own way of just maybe we shouldn't do this, right? You probably had those debates, you had those conversations about what should we do next, but you focused on doing one thing really well and continued to scale that into what Continuum is now today. Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit, what does Continuum do now? Let's talk about, you don't have to name any of your specific clients or people that you work with, but let's talk about some projects that you guys are working on.
Yeah, we do a lot with anything that's like immersive tech, right? So early on, we started with video, and video is great. I think explainer videos have a really good place to get an idea out there in front of people. You don't have to read 10 pages to understand a product. You watch a 30 to 90 second video, fantastic. We just didn't get really excited about it, right? And there's plenty of people in the world doing it. You can go to Fiverr, you can go wherever, and within a couple of minutes, you can have 100 bids back, and they can do it for really, really inexpensive.
From contact to delivery, right? It's wild. Fiverr is just ridiculously quick, which is fun to see. Everyone can be an entrepreneur there, but yes, sorry.
No, which is great to enable the people to be able to make a little bit of money on the side, or some that do it full time. It's great, but it's really competitive with things like video,
right?
Like
saturated,
videos, very saturated. And so for us, we saw a hard time getting the margins. We needed to keep the lights on. And so now we do web-based augmented reality. There's a lot more that goes into it. You need modelers, you need animators. People have to be able to decimate models so that they are just really small file sizes, really simple, that work on the web. It's really tricky. Not many people have figured that out yet, relatively. And so we're able to have more margin in that. It's a little bit more of a trade that's not mastered yet. And so that has allowed us to be able to kind of transition into virtual reality as well. Because the Oculus Quest headset is essentially just a mobile device on your face. That's all it really is as far as processing power goes. And so you have to be able to simplify things for that as well. So we have a team of artists and animators who, from concept through completion, are able to take an idea that's on not a piece of paper, on an iPad now, right? Yeah. And then be able to transition that into a 3D model and rig it and animate it, and we can put it in a video game. And so a couple of years ago, I guess it's been about a year now, we made contact with a graduate from BYU who was working on his solo dev VR game called Sail. And it's just a VR game, and he had a lot of traction.
SALE or SAIL?
SAIL.
Okay.
Pirate themed.
I didn't know if it was Metaverse Sales.
Yeah, not Metaverse Sales. No, pirate game, it was a blast, and he had a good following on Discord, and he kind of had this thing where he wanted to go work for the government and build Department of Defense trainings in VR. It was going to be a good gig, but then he also wanted to go get his master's later. We kind of had this debate where it's like, well, you've got SAIL. And what's your goal of working for the government? It's experience. And what's your goal of getting your master's? Nothing against masters, but you're probably not going to meet anybody in there that has already deployed a VR game. That's his goal, right? So what if you just come get a Continuum master's and let's go build it together and put this game out to the world? Because he had the group following it. He had about 200,000 downloads of this free game that he was just kind of building on his own after hours, having fun. And so he found some funding and he came to Continuum, and we built this VR team to build this game. We'd never done it before, but together we figured it out and we launched it a couple months ago and have a great relationship with the developer. And we are doing our own game now in-house. And so that was an example of a contract that came to us and we fulfilled it, but built a team around it and some IP in-house to be able to figure things out. And then why let that go to waste? Let's do it again. And so now rather than going and finding somebody else who wants us to build their game, we're building our own game now. And so we're going to release in a few months a game called Monkey See, Monkey Doo Doo. You're a monkey in VR going, swinging around vines and trees and trying to not get eaten by a crocodile in the water, and you try and collect bananas. And it's just fun and different, but it's the same team that creates the models for the AR team that creates all the assets for VR. And so we've become an agency in that way where we have this art team that supports AR and it supports VR. And then we've had so much request for Web3 related things. And it's such a passion for us with NFTs and cryptocurrencies and Solidity blockchain, Solidity development for, smart contracts, that we hired a couple of people that understand it better than us. And they come in and they're able to counsel and we're able to fulfill at first simple projects with Web3. And then later on, we're able to, now we're doing a couple pretty massive projects where we're handling all the development for these other clients to be able to build in the metaverse. And it's just because we were able to find one client that had enough trust in us to figure it out, even though it's not what we do. And then we can go, and it feels like every day I'm still not on entrepreneurship phase, still figuring it out. But now we've got our systems in place that allow us to be much more efficient and have fun every day.
So I think you bring up a really good point there. And I think it's important to recognize that it's vital to the growth and scalability of an individual and an organization to hire the right people, right? And you guys may not necessarily be the most well-versed, no pun intended, metaverse. You may not be the most comfortable, or may not be your expertise to create VR or AR games, right? But you know the people and are able to find the people that are able to do that for you. And you don't have to worry about being the one person that has their hands in all the cookie jars, but you hire the right people. Have you ever heard the book Who Not How?
I haven't, no.
It's a book, I believe it's written by Dan Sullivan, but it's a book and the whole concept and focus is hiring and knowing the right who's and having who's in your life that know how to do something that you're not an expert at, right? Yeah. And so if I knew that I wanted to create a project in the metaverse, or if I had a creative game or something that I was trying to create, I'm probably not the person that would be able to go out and learn how to do that. I could, right? Sure. But I have other things that are on my plate and that's not my specialty. And so it's this concept of having who's in your life that you can rely on in any situation, that you can trade services with, that you can work with, and build this network of offering value up front, which I think is something that's vital to networking, right? Yeah. Offering what you can offer to the person that you're trying to get to know better, being a solution, being a help. And then from there, having the mutual benefaction that comes from offering your support and being friends with people, right? Like, obviously in networking, we want to get to know people. And it's a little like, I think people often push it aside and don't recognize like networking is selfish in a way because we want to get to know other people that are important. And we love getting to meet people. And I think if we look at networking in this perspective of how can I help someone else? And in the future with no strings attached, maybe there's a way that they can help me back. I think that's the best way to offer value up front and to meet people. And it sounds like that's been a great way for you guys to grow and to scale, right? You found this BYU student that was a graduate that was doing everything on his own, right? It was just a passion project on the side that he was having fun with. And now all of a sudden, he probably has the same path that he's been thinking, man, 2 years ago, I never would have thought that we were doing this. But you meet the right people and you find the way to get it done. Yep. So one question I do have is, how have you seen the metaverse, how have you seen virtual reality change and develop with the efficiency related to technology?
So as far as getting content into people's hands, just having more development agencies out there creating content has been great. I do think that with Meta really focusing on the Oculus Quest and the Oculus Quest 2, that's made a huge difference because it's so affordable, right? 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, you had to buy a $3,500 gaming PC. You had to be tethered to have some sort of VR experience that's worthwhile. They tried Google Cardboard for a while, which is just it's hopefully never comes back because that was the worst. Makes everybody sick. Latency's horrible. But now you've got this Oculus Quest 2. It's $400, $300, $400. You put it on your face, no tether, no nothing, and you can play pretty awesome games. It's still really simplified graphics, right? But it's going to get better for sure. There's still a really big barrier for content creation, though. It's really expensive to create anything in VR because there's so much custom development, right? The assets have to be really well optimized. The animations have to be different than what you would typically do for a normal video game that's tethered to a PC. And so it's really tricky. And so that's something that now that the metaverse, like I say metaverse, but really nobody knows what the metaverse is. They just have this ideal that they hope comes to fruition. And you have Meta, who changes their name, and it really isn't the metaverse in my opinion, but now people have at least heard the name. So that's a good step in the right direction. And what that's done is it's triggered a lot of different agencies and companies in the world to make it so that creating content in VR and in the metaverse has a lower barrier to entry. And so I think that exponentially, content creation is going to get much, much easier. It already is easier. There's certain tools out there that make it more efficient. But in the next 3 years, it's going to be wild. I think you're going to be able to have a high school science teacher who can go in and create a VR simulation for their students to try at home or in classroom, where they can create it themselves with click and drag type things. And so that's what absolutely needs to happen with metaverse content creation. But as far as hardware, it's gotten so much better with Apple and Google with their phones being able to be more AR capable, with glasses coming out, which I think are going to be a little bit out until they look good enough and are capable enough for the masses to get them. But there's some really promising things with the Project Cambria from Meta and with the Apple Glass or whatever they're going to call it. It's supposed to be released in Q1. We'll see. And those types of things are going to be big and clunky, but really capable. And it's going to be a while for that transition, but it's getting there, and it's inevitable. There's too much money in this market to have it fail. I think there's just too many big players in the game.
I had a really interesting conversation with Chris Lee, who's one of the co-founders of Artifact. And we were talking last week, and he talked about a lot of people struggle to want to adopt the metaverse because they think it's just an extended video game of real life. Yeah. And Chris put it in a really interesting way. He framed it that one of his favorite parts about venturing or going into the metaverse is he looks at it and finds ways that technology is advancing in the metaverse, and finds ways he's like, man, we should be doing this better back on Earth, right? He kind of has, he talks about almost like an out of body experience, right? But he's just traveling to the metaverse, and he talks about how he looks at how technology has advanced and what we envision technology being able to do in the metaverse, and lets that inspire the work that he does when he takes the headset off, or when he takes, when he comes back to Earth. I'll say, I feel like he's like traveling to the moon or something, right? But we have these visionary people that are one step ahead of Web 2, right? Web 3, yes, it's been around for a very long time. And Bitcoin was 2008, I want to say, around there, right? And so it's been 14 years, but we still have so much that's untapped. And I love Chris's perspective for me. It helped me shift my paradigm of, the mass adoption of the metaverse that people have with this barrier to entry. It's like, why would I want to go into a video game, right? And he's using it as a way to help innovate and repurpose the materials that we have here that we're using in everyday life. Yeah. So I remember the first time I got a VR headset. It was 2015. I was in Arkansas at Walmart 100. My uncle was working for Walmart. Black Friday in Walmart, Black Friday in Arkansas, where Walmart was started, is mayhem. I mean, you got people coming out from all over for this Black Friday party. And I remember getting this VR headset for like $15. It was on clearance. And all it was is you literally stuck your phone down into it. Yep. And I was like, man, this is so cool. And we had this video game that like hooked up to a remote that I was playing with. And it was well ahead of its time, right? And that may be where the Oculus got its inspiration from. Sure. But I look back at that and I remember feeling sick just like playing with that AR headset because it was just my phone. The pixelation was just terrible. So I'm glad that technology has advanced and developed over the last couple of years, because I don't know that I'd ever put that VR headset back on, but it's fun to see how it's
unfortunately,
advanced.
There's kind of this negative stigma with VR because people get sick. People still get sick in the new stuff, especially the untethered, like the Oculus. But they always go back to the Google Cardboard is what they called it, or those, slide your phone in. Yeah. And that's just, it's not the same. And so it's similar to, was it Google Glass, right? They were horrible. So, yeah. I mean, they came out years ago. They were just ahead of their time. So now, not only do they have to get over the technical hurdles, but they also have to get over the people's negative stigmas about the glasses. And so that's going to take a while just to regain people's trust. But I think when they try some of this new stuff coming out, they'll be stoked with what it's going to be in the next 5 years or so. I think we're going to have glasses that are significant enough that people will wear them on a daily basis.
I think you bring up a really good point there too on the topic of trust, right? I think a lot of people worry about, man, I'm going to get scammed working with cryptocurrency, or my wallet's going to get hacked, right? And how do we regain that trust? There's a lot of really good initiatives that are being worked on right now with actual legislation at the state level here in Utah. There, with the security board and the people that are working to build that security here in Utah for metaverse and for cryptocurrency and make it easily more mass adopted. So there's some really cool initiatives that are happening there that will be announced in the next couple of months that we're excited about. But I think kind of where I'd like to close out is on the topic of community and the impact that community has in the metaverse, in Web3, in connecting people to a purpose, and helping take the people that have not adopted Web3 or the metaverse, and how do we help people understand the safety, the security, and the opportunity that comes with it. So I know that you focus more on the actual product development side. You're an agency that creates products for your customers. Yeah. From experiences that you've had working with past clients, or that maybe you've had firsthand, what's the impact that you see of community in Web3?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think that with Web3, it is really tricky. It's over a lot of people's head, and there's a lot of trust to be regained, right? And so I think it's these baby steps that we're taking where you're seeing legitimate businesses like Starbucks go into the Web3 space, with their rewards program. And there's a lot of companies like that millions and millions of people use. And at one point, QR codes a few years ago were dead. Like, they died in the US. They did not really exist according to many people. Nobody knew how to use them. And then COVID, unfortunately, came. But you couldn't order food at your favorite restaurant without learning how to scan a QR code to get the menu. Now people get it. And you can't even order food in this arena by talking to a human. You go scan a QR code and you hit order and you pay right there through Apple Pay, right? People get it when they're forced to get it. And I think people people that are doing stuff through companies like Starbucks who have these rewards programs and such, like that's the way to do it, because if people have to figure it out if they want to get the best rewards from a company they trust. And so groups like, Artifact with Nike, making it more known and getting people's trust back through that means is really important. And Continuum for ourselves. So we've been an agency for the last few years, and we're closing out a round of funding this next week, which is going to enable us to build our own products.
Congratulations.
So appreciate it. Yeah. We're stoked. And it's going to make it so that we don't have to take on, I think client work is amazing, and that's able to see kind of how other people think and kind of the cutting edge of things. But really, we want to be able to build our own stuff in-house. So VR games, and Web3 projects as well. We're trying to stay really connected to those voids. I forget who it was, but on a panel yesterday, somebody mentioned that if you have doubts about Web3, other people have that same doubt. So that could be the start of a business, right? And I'm glad that he brought that up to the world who was in the future breakout yesterday. Yeah. It was fantastic. And that's what we're thinking as well. It's such an ever-changing landscape that there's so much opportunity out there to build products that are going to regain people's trust and simplify things, like like OpenSea and Coinbase. Coinbase you don't feel like you're using Web3, and you're really not. It's like this decentralized, centralized thing that is going to be like that for a really long time, I think. There will be stuff that's totally decentralized, but it's always going to be for the mass. I think it's going to be like a centralized, decentralized project. And there's so much opportunity for that, for converting our already existing successful businesses kind of along this Web3 path.
Well, and you raise a really interesting point there. There's the tactics for how we help businesses grow and how we lift others up is no different from Web 2 to Web 3, right? It's just applying the same tactics and the same methods for how we support people in Web 3, in the metaverse, right? We connect people on a similar vision, on some sort of passion. We connect them on a message. And right, like if people have doubts about the metaverse, if they have doubts about Web 3, they don't want to go through that alone, right? So it's like, why not group us all together? Why not lift each other up? And that's one of the things that we love about this ecosystem in Silicon Slopes is our mission and our focus is to learn, connect, and serve. And we learn together, we connect together, and we serve together. And I think that's a great thing that is happening here in Utah, right? We're focused on connecting to the next level of technology with each other. We're connecting people with tech, people with companies. We're learning about all of this new emerging technology and advancing as we go. Yeah. And our responsibility and our opportunity here at Silicon Slopes is to celebrate that. So we celebrate you guys at Continuum. Congratulations on your funding that's coming next week. We're excited to stay tuned on what you guys have in the works. So
yeah, sounds like a plan.
Spencer, anything else on your mind related to Web3?
I think people just need to give it a chance. It is scary. We did a project called Space Plus with an aerospace company called Uplift, where we created the smart contracts. We did all the art. Fantastic. It's absolutely amazing. The community is insane. Basically making it so that space is more accessible to the average Joe, right? They selected somebody to go on a Blue Origin flight up to, past the Kármán line. So they're technically an astronaut at that point, but it's just a person from the community who's part of this NFT group. There's so much love and interest and shared opportunity amongst people in this world where Web3 is right now. A lot of these NFT projects or PFP projects are about community. So find something you love and go for it and just commit and get in there and participate. We need everybody's help.
I love it. Well, Spencer, congratulations. Thank you for joining us today. Where's the best place to connect with you online?
Just my probably our website, continuum-xr.com.
Sounds good. Thanks for joining the Silicon Slopes podcast.
Thanks, Ryan.